T-Mobile's unlimited plan costs $95 per month for a smaller network, plus monthly taxes and fees. It's enough to wreck your day. Cricket's unlimited plan gives you a bigger network for $25 less per month, with monthly taxes and fees included. Cricket Wireless, something to smile about.
Download speeds max of 8 megabits per second LTE and 4 megabits per second 4G. Price comparison based on one smartphone line with unlimited plan. Mobile hotspot not available. Activation, other fees and restrictions apply. Coverage not available everywhere. Terms, features, and restrictions subject to change. See store for details.
And welcome to the Seahawks Show on the Happy Hour Network with Kevin and Lee. Follow us on the Twitter at Seahawks Show. We have a huge show today for you with 3 guests, including Danika Brace of the Seattle Mist, Stephen Cohen of Seattle Post-Intelligencer, and Danny Kelly of Field Goals. Stephen and Danny will discuss Seattle's draft, and Danika will talk, of course, what it's like to play for the Mist. Also, we would like to thank NGSC Sports and I-95 Sports Network for playing our show. Kevin, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm trying to follow this new Sonics Arena stuff on Twitter, but it doesn't look like there's going to be much of a resolution to it tonight.
Yeah, I guess I don't have any hopes for a basketball returning. I don't know. I mean, it's funny because you lived in Seattle longer than I did. Do you think it's a matter of would Seattle support the NBA again? I mean, obviously there's a lot of entrenched Sonics fans, but do you think they really would be interested in the Sonics coming back to Seattle or a team like the Sonics?
Yeah, they would be because there was a ton of fan support, and you know, they didn't leave because of lack of fan support. They left because the dude that bought the team was from Oklahoma City and wanted to move them, and it was a real underhanded, sly way to do things. And you know, I know they'd support it. It's a pretty good NBA town, and it's a big Sonics, especially if they brought them back and called them the Sonics again. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason not to at this point.
No.
Yeah, so anyway, we're here to talk, of course, Sonics, and we actually will have a question for Stephen Cohen. Stephen's actually going to be on about 4:40 Pacific time. Danika will be on in just a few minutes. We're definitely excited to have her. We've never had her on the show before, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. So Seattle drafted 10 players, including 3 offensive linemen, 3 running backs. Too many running backs, in your opinion?
I don't think so, because I think we're pretty thin at running back as it is, with Lynch leaving and Thomas Rawls coming off an injury. So, hey, I think Christian Michael better get it together because last year they cut him. He made it around the league, a couple teams, and then the Seahawks brought him back. I don't think there's any guarantee that he's got a job, and I'm hoping that this kid out of Arkansas is going to make the team and do something special. Running back in the SEC, that's a tough job. It's a tough league to play in. And what do you have, 1,500 yards or something like that? It's that's for a pretty good Arkansas team. So hopefully he can make it. But I don't think they got too many running backs.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing that worries me is maybe they spent, and this is just me talking, but maybe they spent too many draft picks on running backs when they already have, I don't know. It could be one of those things where if they already have 2, obviously that's not enough. But then if you spend 3 draft picks on running backs, then it makes me wonder if, possibly those draft picks could have been spent more wisely. It's almost like, okay, we got Rawls, but we're not sold on Michael. And, well, we'll take Procise. You know what? We're not totally sold on him either. So we'll take Alex Call. It was just, I don't know. I just wonder if it was too many picks on running backs. Not that you can have too many running backs on the team, but I don't know. It worries me when maybe they're still searching for the answer at running back. To me, I don't know. I was more concerned that they. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And they're not sold on Christian Michael.
Yeah, I know. It's funny because that is one guy they drafted in the second round, and then he comes back to the team after not doing anything with the team or anyone else for that matter. But then when he comes back, he actually is a productive player. So
yeah,
I mean, is he the answer long term? Nah, but it's still one of those things where he's a decent number 2, I think. Maybe, I don't know. I think you brought it up when we were off air, of course. But you brought up the fact that Michael may be looking for a job more or less before the season starts again because of those draft picks. What do you think?
Yeah, and I got a feeling if he's looking for a job, he's not going to get one in the NFL. I mean, he made it around the league last year, and this may be the last rodeo for him, and he may have it in him. I mean, like you said, he played well at the end of the last few games of last season, but still, he's not safe.
Well, do you think they worry a little bit about Rawls' injuries? You think maybe that has something to do with it too? Maybe they don't feel like he's ever going to come back fully healthy?
I'm sure that's a concern. I mean, you always got to be concerned with an injury like that, and although that guy, he really produced when he was playing, but he runs hard, and he's not, like he even said, he goes, I don't look to run out of bounds. I mean, I look to gain yards, and so that's kind of opening yourself up for injuries in this league, with the way guys hit, and you get yourself I mean, I'm shocked that Lynch didn't have more injuries. They did, just the way he ran and the hits he took, standing straight up. But that's got to be a concern with Rawls is that injury. Is he going to be back 100%? Who knows? I hope so. Boy, I hope so.
Yeah, I think the Seahawks have been more than lucky as far as for Lynch especially. And then, Russell Wilson hasn't, as much punishment as he's taken, he really hasn't missed any time.
No.
And so it's, I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm counting my blessings every time there's a new Sunday and Russell Wilson is still standing up, because he took a lot of punishment. Obviously, he took a lot of punishment because of an underperforming offensive line. So speaking of the offensive line, obviously there are several draft picks made for the offensive line. Think they're any better than they were at the beginning of last season at this point?
I would certainly hope so, because that was a dumpster fire, as they say, at the beginning of last season. But this is Freddie kid. He's a big boy. Again, played in the SEC, which is a tough league to play in. And we'll see. I saw some stats today that on Twitter. I forget who put them out on Twitter, that he didn't get beat very often. I think when somebody's rushing from the outside, he got beat like every 33rd snap or something like that. And then when they were rushing straight up the middle, he got beat every 271 snaps. So he's a big boy, but again, it's a big step from college to NFL. So we'll see. I don't know. It's I certainly hope that he can play. I'm not going to make have any expectations of him starting right off the bat next year, but hopefully at some point he can.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm wondering if maybe they think he will start right off the bat just because he's going to be on the right side, and that's the issue they had last year. I mean, no part of the offensive line really at any point early in the season, I should say, was good. It seemed like when Patrick Lewis became the center that things got a little bit better, but yeah, I mean, that right side was really bad. I mean, Justin Britt, I mean, that's one concern I have is that it seems like the Seahawks have had better luck with transitioning tight ends to other pieces of the offensive line, because when you look at the offensive line, a lot of the guys they've drafted lately in the last few years, they haven't really worked out. So can they not? They evaluate everything else well, but they can't evaluate offensive talent well?
Evidently not. I mean, but the crazy thing is last year we talked about it every week on this show with these guys, and they said, well, they say they're getting better, and they weren't. And then towards the end of the year, they kind of started clicking. We can't have that again this next year. I mean, we talked about it before. If we would have won 2 or 3 of those games early on in the season that we should have won against St. Louis, now the Los Angeles Rams, I mean, they never should have lost that game. And it would have been a whole different picture going into the playoffs and, with 2 more wins. So whoever says the wins at the beginning of the season don't count, I strongly disagree with them, because last year was a good example of that for the Seahawks.
That and the fact that they seem like they were behind the 8 ball all season long because of that slow start. Now, we look at the schedule this year, and, they should get off to a better start. They have Miami at home. Not that Miami's awful, but they're, playing at home versus going on the road against those first 2 tough teams. But actually, we now welcome Danika Brace to the show. Danika was the 2015 Legends Football League MVP and Defensive Player of the Year with the Seattle Mist. The Mist won the championship last year, 27-21 over the Chicago Bliss. Danika is the first time being on the show. We really appreciate it. How are you this evening?
I'm good, guys. Thanks for having me on. Sorry, I'm in work right now, so I had to step outside for a second.
No problem.
Hey, Danika, congratulations on the championship last year, and also to the beginning of the good start this year. What are a couple things that made the season so successful for you guys last year, for you personally and for the Mist as a team?
I was fortunate enough to have a really great off-season training program. There's a lot of girls in the league that, yes, they work out and they say they're getting ready for football, but I trained in a football performance facility with NFL athletes, and I brought in a couple of the girls last year. So we had a great off-season program, and we take it very seriously, obviously. And we also meshed really well as a team, as opposed to having a lot of egos of girls that are trying to prove themselves in the league and don't want to be somebody. Everyone was just more concerned. We had so many returning veterans that had tasted or come close to a championship and never really achieved it. So I think everybody was so hungry that we came together as a team, and that's really what ultimately, led us to win it all last year. Everybody had been hungry for it for 5-6 years, 7 years in some of our cases. So
that's great. Hey, for the listeners that don't know much about you, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into started playing football and kind of some of the other sports you played growing up?
Yeah, I grew up, I was lucky that my mom let me kind of do everything my parents did. So I was a very competitive springboard diver. I was a swimmer, basketball player, soccer, water polo, you name it, I did it. But I ended up, ultimately in high school, you kind of got to choose. So I was a basketball player, a springboard diver, and then I got into track and field as well. But, basketball is my main sport, and I see, on occasion, other basketball players in the LFL that have had great success. I don't know if it's just the hand-eye coordination or the work ethic. But, yeah, basketball is still my main sport. I've gotten in trouble a couple times for playing, when I'm under contract for the LFL, because I blew up my ankle 2 years ago doing that. But so I got involved through my older sister, actually. She, in 2009, when the league first started, she'd heard about it on TV or whatever it was, an open tryout. I wasn't really sold on it because I was still playing basketball. So actually somebody came out to one of my games and saw me play, and I had 40 points that game. And they asked me, hey, have you ever played football before? And then I said, yeah, I played flag a little bit in college, and in high school with the boys. And so then they sent an invite out to an open tryout, and they were already I think 1 or 2 games into their season. So it was legit. I ran a 40, did broad jump, vert, 3-cone drill, pro agility, all the stuff you see in the NFL Combine. So then I thought, okay, maybe it's a little bit more legit. I made the team that very night, got the phone call, flew down to San Diego that next weekend, and I loved it. I was hooked. So year 7, here I am.
That's awesome. So, the Miss is 2-0 so far this year. What do you think makes the team better than the other ones?
Man, you know what? To be honest with you guys, we're not even the team that we were last year. We haven't really come together as a team and played full on, as like one unit. There's been some individual players that have had good games, but I'm excited to see what happens. Hopefully against Chicago, we all finally come together. But I really do think it's the leaders, it's the veterans that are leaders on the field. We're packed with veterans, and the rookie that we do have that is playing currently, she has the same mindset and work ethic. She's not worried about getting on the front page of a magazine or being in the spotlight or on the posters for the LFL. She just wants an opportunity to play amongst girls that she's been watching on YouTube or on TV, on MTV when we used to be, now we're on the CW. So she came into the program looking up to a lot of us, and she just wants the opportunity to play, and she works for it. So I think, the difference between us and other teams, 100% is coaching. Our coach, Coach Chris, he's the guru, man. He knows football inside and out, and he expects us to play like men. So, there's a lot of studying that goes on. It's a very complex offensive package that he has, and no other coaches are doing that. They're kind of worried about, let's keep it simple. They're girls. They haven't been around football that long. But Coach Chris doesn't, there's no excuse. If you don't get it, get out of the classroom. Just get lost. We don't want you on the team. So I think, between how kind of skilled he is as a head coach and then how much experience and leadership we have on our team, I think that's the big difference between all the other teams.
Yeah, well said. So compare the kind of reception that you expected when you first started playing in the Legends Football League and the way fans react to games now.
Unfortunately, there's still a couple that are around that are very into, I guess, the clothing, the uniforms. A lot of people leave comments still, like very inappropriate comments and kind of some sexist comments, like, she should be in the kitchen, what's she doing on a football field, just dumb stuff like that. And that's kind of how 2009 was. Like, why isn't she making a sandwich? And now, I get my social media and the response I get from fans it's nothing. It's really nothing like that. It's all strictly, hey, wow, you're a savage, you're a beast, you're a badass. Like, I get NFL guys that hit me up constantly. Like LeGarrette Blount just hit me up and said, I'm a really big fan of yours, and I just want you to know I admire the way you play. So guys watch it, girls love it. I have one of my biggest fans is a female, and she is a mom, and she says, you inspire me every single day. I watch your workouts, I watch your game film, and you're doing something for women, and I respect that. So it's pretty cool to see how much it's changed over the years, because it's kind of a movement for women and that female empowerment stuff.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Anybody who says that you need to be making a sandwich needs to pull up a YouTube video and stand in front of you and take a hit, because I don't want to take a hit from you guys.
Yeah.
I mean,
I get guys daily that are like, please don't hit me. And I'm like, I'm just walking next to you. It's Tuesday afternoon at noon. I'm not going to hit you just randomly.
I was showing my wife a game. I go, watch these guys. My wife was like, oh, my God. She was very impressed.
Although my body's taking a little bit of a beating at the age of 27, so let's figure this out.
Yeah, I bet. And there's less pads than the guys have, too. But
Yeah.
Speaking of some of that, what are some of the rule differences, if any, between the LFL and the NFL that people might not be aware of?
Oh, we have an actual rule that will suspend you for a game the first time, and then the second time you're kicked out of the league indefinitely. And this is never going to be in the NFL, but you can't pull top. So if they go back and watch game film and you intentionally pull the girl's top to like expose her,
right,
then you'll be suspended for a game, and then after that it's indefinitely. So that's kind of funny, but it's just different because we are 7-on-7. So even men's arena football is 8-on-8, and then obviously, NFL is 11. But, it's a faster game, and it makes it more entertaining. So we do have to be 3 yards off the ball to start unless you're in the red zone. So 10 yards and in, you can be 1 yard off the ball for the defense. 3 yards off the ball, which gives the offense a little bit of an advantage, if you can make the most of it. Because in the NFL, if you're a receiver and that DB wants to jam you, you're probably not getting off the line unless you're really good with your hands. But we have 3 yards to hopefully be able to get off the line and get free. That's kind of the major difference right there, is having that little cushion. That should be a benefit for the offense to make the game more fun and more entertaining for the fans, because there should be more scores, ideally. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say we don't kick field goals. So after we score, we go for 1 point or 2, and that's every single play. And we do have the opportunity to punt if you want, but it's a 50-yard field. So if you can't, be in good enough field position or get a first down when the defense is 3 yards off, then something's going on with your offensive coordinator.
Yeah. What's the fan experience like at an LFL game?
Oh, Seattle, I could not ask for a better place. I'm from here, and I did leave for a while. I went to Las Vegas and played there. But now that I'm back in Seattle, especially with what's been going on with the Seahawks, all of our fans are diehard football fans, and they're so loyal to the sport of football, and they love that the Seattle Mist plays in the off-season of the Seahawks. Because all those crazy Seahawks fans that you see with their faces painted or the onesie jumpsuit from head to toe, those are the same people at our game. And they respect us and they love us, like we are the Seahawks. So it's really cool, the football atmosphere in Seattle, because I'll walk around and people will say, hey, are you that number 8? And I love what you guys do. It's so cool. I'm going to be at the next game. I'm a season ticket holder. And we only have 2 home games. So I'm like, you're a season ticket holder. Okay. Thanks for buying 2 tickets. I appreciate you. But it's cool. They're loyal, and they love it because there's no bad seats in the arena. We get about 7,000 people in there. And you're in a hockey arena, so you're all down on the action. You're right along that wall. So it's cool. You score, and you get to celebrate with the fans. You get to touch them and kind of like Lambeau Leap every single time if you want to.
That's awesome. Well, I've had the pleasure of speaking with Jen Welter before on a show, and I know that women are making inroads, thankfully, into football or basketball, for instance, with the Spurs assistant coach. In 20 years from now, do you see more women hopefully becoming more involved with not even just NFL, but professional sports?
Oh, absolutely. The amount of females now, and the cool thing about being a female is that we're so good at multitasking. There's a reason that, we become mothers and all that kind of stuff, because you got to be able to hold the baby in one arm while you're making dinner for your husband, while you're, doing your, finances and all the above. And that's just, females to have the ability to do a little bit more mentally as well now as physically. It used to just be the males are physical, the females were, intelligent. And now you see so many girls that have been really competitive in sports that only play with the boys. Like for me, I didn't get good at basketball until I started playing pickup at 24 Hour Fitness. And I was the only girl on the court, and I had to wait and earn my respect in there to be able to play with these dudes who were, 6'6", ex-NBA players or ex-guys from overseas, And so it's. I really do think that females are making a big step just because the level of commitment to sports at a younger age and then training and having that tough mentality, it's a great fit to be able to run something. To be honest with you, I plan on being in some form of management with a sports team one day. That's my ideal goal. So
that'd be awesome.
I'm one of them. Yeah.
So personally for you, what are the best and worst experiences you've had in your playing career so far?
Oh man, obviously the best experience was winning that championship last year. Confetti was everywhere. You're just on a high. I don't even remember half of it. I just remember that feeling of blissfulness. It was just, I remember laying down on the turf field doing snow angels. And our turf, now we have nice turf. It's coming in this week. But, it used to just be, I tell people it's old school AstroTurf mixed with shards of glass. Like that's exactly what it feels like. But yeah, I mean that was by far the highest moment ever for me in my career. And then I would say the worst. There's a couple different things. One of them was tearing my MCL and meniscus in a game in Chicago. Man, that was like 4 years ago. That was one of the worst pains I've ever felt. And I just didn't. I continued playing, and I knew something was wrong because it just felt like my leg was jello. But my adrenaline was so high, and it was running through me. I kept playing, and then finally I just fell to the turf. I couldn't even physically stand on my own leg, and they carted me off, and they're like, oh, yeah, you tore all of it. I'm like, good. Well, it wasn't my ACL, so winning.
Wow.
So that was probably one of the worst experiences, or the hospital ride in Guatemala. That was a little scary. I got hit. Yeah, I got hit right in Guatemala. I got hit 2 times while I delivered the hits, but one of them I took a helmet like kind of into the kidney, and so they were really scared of internal bleeding, and I'd also fractured my hand. And so they took me to the hospital, and getting loaded up, because the fans in Guatemala were insane. They would just ambush. They'd just jump in, try to get pictures. They'd want to hold you, touch you, hug you. It was crazy. So when they carted me into the ambulance, there was just fans that were rushing it and banging on the side of it and trying to get inside, and it was scary being in, like, kind of I don't want to say a third world country, but, definitely a little bit more poverty than there is in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, scary.
That would be extremely frightening if you were surrounded by people in a different country. Yeah. I don't speak Spanish, but if I didn't even speak the language, that would be even more scary.
Yeah, they jumped over the barricades, the fences. They just all rushed the field after the game and started picking up players and the security. Gosh. Yeah, we had a really good security detail when we were out doing like press tours, but at the game there were just so many of them that security couldn't even keep them off the field.
When was that?
December 4th, I think. This last
year.
Yeah, this last December.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, crazy. Wow. One of my best games, though, so it was worth it.
That's really funny. It's funny. You were fantastic. It was really a pleasure to have you on the show. And when Kevin mentioned, hey, I think I might be able to get Danika Brace on the show, the first thing he said was, you got to check out her YouTube and see the hits.
Thank you.
I'm impressed. I tell you what, I never hit like that when I played football.
I
appreciate it.
Yeah, well, they only let me carry the water, so I never even got to play. But Danika, will you thank you again for being on. Will you let people know where they can maybe watch the games or find you on social media?
Yeah, so my social media, my Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook are all first and last name. So it's Danika Brace, DANIKA BRACE. And then the games are on YouTube. You just have to subscribe to the Legends Football League, and then all the games will be played on YouTube. They're also on local networking, which is the CW network. So I'm not sure. It's just local for your teams, I'm pretty sure, because I had a bunch of people tell me, they watched our game here in Seattle and Oregon. They watched our last game on the CW. So I'm not sure what the East Coast is like, but I think it's just your local programming.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they played a bunch of games. We're in Tennessee, but they played a bunch of games out here. I think it was on Access TV or something. I saw that championship game from last year.
Yeah, they were playing it on. We were on Fuse last year, so Fuse did like a rerun of all of our games. Yeah,
it was Fuse last year.
And then they signed with the CW this year. So I don't know what's going on. I kind of like being better on cable better because everybody can watch it, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know you guys were in Tennessee. I wondered where you guys were out of.
Yeah. Well,
I'm originally from Seattle. I grew up in Seattle and moved out here about 16 years ago. My wife's from here, but I'm still a Seattleite at heart.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's beautiful. It's 80 degrees and sunny outside today. We just went and got in Alki. I took a bunch of my teammates there.
I saw that on Instagram. That was awesome.
Yep. Yeah, so fun. So much fun. Working with Dawn, I'll tell you what, this girl, I'll let you guys know right now, Dominique Malloy, I brought her from the training facility in Las Vegas. I tried to make her play with the Vegas Sin, and she came out for a couple practices and then didn't do it. And then when I left, there was nobody on the team, so she was a starting running back. She decided to play last year but had nobody to block for the poor girl. And I kid you not, she's the fastest girl I've ever seen in the entire league. If she was laser time, I promise you she's running like a 4.39. It's
wow.
crazy. I've never seen somebody so fast. She's tiny. She has 7% body fat, which is kind of unhealthy for girls. So that's just for build. And she's a freak of nature. So just watch this next game. She should really explode, and she's starting to understand how to read and react a little bit better now. And watch
awesome.
her. Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. Well, gosh, you were fantastic. We both really appreciate you being on. So, good luck the rest of the season, and we'd love to have you on again.
I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Danica.
Bye.
Yeah, you're right, Kevin. She was fantastic. And hopefully people tune in and watch the Mist in Seattle or your local team, because the league's actually expanding. So it's not going away anytime soon. I was checking the league out on. I think they're adding 2 or 3 teams almost every season. So probably bigger than the NFL one day. So going back to the draft a little bit before we're joined by Stephen Cohen of the Seattle Post-Intelligencer in about 10 minutes. Anything else that really stood, not even Seattle's draft, but anything that really stood out to you about the draft in general? For instance, Gus Bradley, obviously former friend of the Seahawks. Jacksonville Jaguars seemed to have a fantastic draft.
Yeah, they did. I think that what I heard. I think I was listening to somebody on the radio this afternoon coming home, and they were talking about that Jaron Reed. They were expecting him to go a lot higher than he did, and the big defensive tackle out of Alabama that we picked up. So I don't. Hopefully, showing up, our defensive line is pretty good, but hey, you can always add to that. So hopefully that kid can do something. I know I was reading up something on him. They say he's probably not going to be an every down guy, maybe a situational player on the defense, but he sure is a big boy.
Yeah, he is. It's funny because it felt like about 36 players from the Alabama defensive line got drafted. It was like, it's crazy. But, I think he's expected to, kind of step in where Brandon Mebane left off. And, of course, they re-signed Reuben. And I think, getting these young guys in, basically they need a run stopper. Mebane wasn't an every down guy either. But if he can do what Mebane did, or close to it, that's definitely going to – the only thing that really worries me defensively is – because I think the secondary is going to be okay. I know that sounds weird, but, last year they had some issues, especially covering tight ends. But the only thing that really worries me is the depth at linebacker. I still don't feel like they really have addressed that.
No, they haven't, and I don't. Because if you get injuries, that is going to be an issue. And I think they were. Weren't we talking the last show or a couple of shows ago about Frank Thomas lost some weight and possibly they were going to put him back there, but I think they moved him back to defensive end. I don't think they're going to put him back at linebacker, but yeah. That's a real good point. That linebacker depth is not. I don't know if maybe they're not so worried about it with the secondary. I don't know. Chancellor's. He's prone for injury. Earl Thomas has been injured. They've all been injured at some point. But I was happy to see Brandon. I'm happy to see Brandon Browner come back. I know some people don't like him, but I've always liked that guy. He's just amazing to me. When I went down and saw him and saw the Seahawks play Atlanta a couple years ago and saw that guy walk out on the field, I was like, that guy is a cornerback. He's 31 or something like that, and he's a lot slower. But I like that guy.
It feels like Browner should be like 38, though, doesn't it? It's like it feels like he was around forever. It's like he played in Canada for 10 years, and then he can't. That's what it feels like,
Exactly.
Actually, I think we do have. I think I've had some sound of John Schneider's. I don't know if you've heard this on 710 ESPN Seattle or went to the Seahawks.com, but John Schneider's call to Fetty when they chose to go with him in the first round.
Yeah, that's awesome. It is awesome. I heard it.
Here is what it sounds like.
Hello?
Hey, is this Jermaine?
Yes.
Jermaine, hey, this is John Schneider with the Seattle Seahawks.
How you doing?
You doing all right, man?
I'm doing great.
We were thinking about selecting you right here. Would that be all right?
That'd be amazing.
Okay, man. Congratulations. You're a Seattle Seahawk, brother.
Yes, sir!
All right. All right, brother.
It's funny because he says, "Would that be all right?" I know he probably just says that to everybody, but once he, no, I think I'd rather pass. Maybe if I can hold out for.
Did you hear the story behind that though? When they
not.
talked about that?
No.
God, who was that guy? It was a guy out of Tennessee. Who was one of the running back for Tennessee a few years ago? And it was like the fourth or fifth round, and they called him and said, "Hey, we're thinking about picking you in with our pick," and he just kind of go, would that be okay? And he said, "Yeah, that's fine." Basically with a real nonchalant. I want to say it wasn't Arian Foster. I forget who it was, and they didn't pick him. They're like,
wow.
Forget this guy. He's not excited. Forget it. We're not going to pick him. But that was kind of the other half of that because I was listening to that when Brock and Salk were playing that, and they told that story. God, I wish I could remember who it was, but it was. I was like, man, that's the kind of guy you want on your team too. Some guy that's going to be fired up to get picked by the Seattle Seahawks. That's.
I guess my question would be, why would you not? I mean, obviously we're Seahawks fans, but why would you, for a good team? If I'm a young guy, maybe I'm not a Seahawks fan if I'm a young player, but if one of the better teams picks me, why would I not be excited? What are you hoping? That's what you go to college and play college football for, right? You're hoping to either better yourself and get an education or play professional football. So if a team picks you in the first round, that kind of meets that criteria. Why would you not be excited? Especially, if you go to the Browns, it's like, well, hell, I guess they traded down enough to get me, but it's like, if you go to the Seahawks or I don't want to say the Patriots, but even the Cardinals, the Cardinals, I think, are better off. They got Kim Ditche, and they got Chandler Jones. I think they're, it's the Seahawks and the Cardinals, and then now the Rams are going to fit in. The team I feel bad for is the 49ers at this point. Maybe they had an okay draft, but they've got a lot of room to catch up, and the other teams are getting better too. So, but anyway, getting back to that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the 49ers got more issues than players. They've got serious management. I don't know. They're like the Lakers in their front office. It's good luck to Luke Walton, but I don't know. They've got some problems there.
And they'll be better off because Kobe's not there. Nothing against. I don't want to say Kobe hate, but he kind of hurt the team. That's just kind of how it is, And it's really they're going to be a better team without him. Plus, he clears off. I don't know. The rest of the show is about the Lakers. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But no, he clears off a lot of cap space, which is funny because you never have that issue in the NFL. It's going back to the Jets a little bit. They chose another quarterback in the draft. They've 9 out of the last 11 years they've chosen a quarterback. Obviously Bryce Petty isn't the guy who they think is going to be, but Fitzpatrick, he had a good season last year. He's really not that good at a quarterback overall, but he was good last year, and now they're not even sure if they're going to sign him because they offer him $8 million, and he wants $15 million because he's a starting quarterback in the NFL, and that may be kind of the going rate, and he might just take his ball and go home. But, it's one of those things where it's like if it was guaranteed money, like in any other sport, it might hurt the team. But why not offer the guy $15 million, right? If only 8 of it is guaranteed and not even that much, why would you not just say, hey, 15? But
exactly.
Yeah,
I got to throw out there one of my son's friends, Zach Nelson. He just texted me and said that guy I was talking about that didn't want to come to the Seahawks was Montario Hardesty out of Tennessee. So appreciate that, Zach, for giving me the information, sir.
And didn't he end up going to the Browns?
I think so. Yeah. And where is he now?
He's
selling insurance.
Maybe, yeah. I don't want to say he's definitely not playing in the NFL. Maybe he's having a successful career doing something else, but it's definitely not playing in the NFL.
That's right.
Yeah, I forgot about that guy. And just sticking with Tennessee, College of Tennessee for a minute, they didn't have guys picked for the second year in a row, but obviously that's going to change next year, especially if Jalen Hurd turns pro and you've got Sutton and Barnett. There's going to be a lot of Tennessee players starting to go pro in the next few years. I don't think that a 2-year run of them not getting anybody drafted is going to happen again anytime soon, for sure. University of Washington, they've got some kids coming in, especially with Chris Peterson. So right now he has the best recruiting class in the Pac-12, which says a lot because USC usually picks up whoever they want. I think Chris Peterson's he's already started to turn that program around a little bit. 7-6 last year they were 7-6. That sounds crazy when I say that because the team wasn't good, but I think he's a good enough coach that he's going to make that team better.
Yeah, I agree. I think he is. He did a good job at Boise State, and that University of Washington, they've been through a lot of crap as far as the coaching has gone over the last few years, and they got somebody solid in there who can recruit, knows what he's doing, and I don't know if they'll ever get back to where they were in the '90s, the Steve Entman years, but man, that team. Don James had that team rolling. He got in trouble too, but with some of that stuff. But if I know the Seattle fans really want that University of Washington to get back to those days, and it'd be awesome. And hopefully Chris Peterson can do that.
Yeah. So, Kevin, tell us a little bit about our next guest.
Stephen Cohen. We'd like to welcome him back to the show. He's been on the show before. He covers the Seahawks for the Seattle PI. And Stephen can be found on Twitter at @SCohenPI. And Stephen, thanks for being on again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm sorry if there's a background noise. I'm just getting out of the city council meeting, so
that was going to be my first question before we got into Seahawks or any draft. As I was trying to follow that on Twitter. Obviously, I can't do much about it. But was there any resolution to that thing?
Well, the arena project suffered a big blow just now. A key proposal was vacating a one-block stretch of Occidental Avenue south of Safeco Field, and the council voted 5-4 against vacating the block. It was expected to pass, I think, heading into the day. Most people thought it was going to go through, and two council members who were expected to vote for it voted against, and so it's a significant development and kind of puts a wrench in the works for Chris Hansen.
So what does that mean going forward? Is it a dead issue now, or?
I don't think it's dead, but Hansen's camp has said before that the street vacation was an essential part of their project. And so if you believe that, then they've got a major issue to work through. Maybe they come up with plans that work around the street vacation issue, but it seems like it might be dead.
Well, that's not good for us Sonic fans.
Yeah, no, I would say Sonic fans are not too pleased today.
Yeah. Well, Stephen, I guess I appreciate the update on that. Like I said, I was trying to follow it on Twitter, and we started the show and kind of lost track of it. But before we get into talking about, it's a very technical
issue. It's something hard to follow too. So it takes a little while to wade into it.
Yeah, it is. Before we get into the Seahawks, I want to get into talk about the draft. What are one or two teams that you think had pretty good drafts?
Well, I'm probably not alone in thinking that Jacksonville did well, even if it was just their top two picks. Getting Jalen Ramsey, who I thought was probably the best player in the draft, certainly I think the best defensive player in the draft, and could potentially have like a Charles Woodson-like impact in the secondary if he pans out, was amazing. And then, Miles Jack, slipping to them in the second round, he was a guy who I think a lot of us thought could go to them at number 4 overall. So being able to get him in the second round is amazing. And even if they only get a handful of years from him at his best, would, I think, be something that Jags fans would be thrilled with in the second-round pick. So I think they did a great job. Chicago, I think, did too. They got Leonard Floyd, I think 10th overall, and I'm totally spacing on who they got later in the draft. But every pick that they had, I think, for the first 3 or 4 rounds, I was kind of tracking with and thinking they're trying to develop a defense that is set up for Vic Fangio's scheme, the one he ran in San Francisco with such success. And I think you're going to see the Bears take a step forward this year because they're going to get an infusion of talent there.
And what about a couple teams that you think didn't have that good a draft?
I'm trying to think. The 49ers are puzzling. For a team that whole team's puzzling to me. it really is, and it's funny because, if this were Philadelphia, where Chip Kelly had the range to make all the picks and could do whatever he wanted, personnel-wise, it'd be one thing. But I think we all thought, and the team certainly gave us the impression that Trent Baalke was going to still have the reins there, and Chip Kelly was just going to coach the football team. So that it looks like a Chip Kelly draft, which might work out well because maybe it is really Trent Baalke evaluating the talent, getting the players for Chip Kelly's system, and they're going to work together well. But it looks weird. It looks weird. So I'm not, I think DeForest Buckner is a fine player, and he is a guy who probably isn't a bad choice for the first round selection. But then later on, second, third rounds, you saw them kind of reaching for some guys. And I don't know. It's a little bit puzzling to me that what they did.
Now you mentioned Jacksonville. Do you think the Seahawks fans should be happy for Gus Bradley and Jacksonville seems to be turning things around down there?
Yeah, sure. I think that if they're looking for an AFC team to root for, the Jags would be interesting. They showed last year they took a real step forward with their offense, and Blake Bortles seems to be developing. They've got 2 or 3 really top-notch young receivers, and Alan Hearns, Allen Robinson. You got Marquise Lee, who's still there. They've got a few running backs, including Chris Ivory, who they signed as a free agent. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. That's a good team. I think with their draft, adding a couple of studs on the defensive side, and then also bringing in Malik Jackson in free agency, that defense should be much improved too. So a lot to like in Jacksonville.
Well, you mentioned a few running backs. The Seahawks certainly have that now because they had 2 on the roster, 3 that they drafted, and they're bringing in Trey Madden, of course. Does this surprise you, or of those 3, who do you think has the best chance of making an impact, or do you think Trey Madden actually might make the team?
I'm not sure about Madden because I don't know how healthy he is, frankly, if he's going to be able to stay healthy. He hasn't really shown the ability to do that in his college career. So I'd be wary of kind of counting on him. I think, though, that the first 2 running backs they took, C.J. Prosise and then Alex Collins, are guys who are going to make an impact. And Prosise is going to be, I think Prosise is the one who's going to have the easiest time making the team because he is their passing down back now. He moves right into that role. And Thomas Rawls, is a decent enough player in the passing game. He's a decent enough receiver. He does a good job. But Prosise is a guy who I think they envision a very specific role, maybe almost like a Percy Harvin-like role, where they get him moving in motion, they get him working all around the field, they get him lining up in the slot, lining up wide, and also taking the ball out of the backfield. He's a guy who's going to, I think, make an immediate impact, and they really like his skill set. He's got some stuff he needs to work on. He's really young at the position, so he's obviously not a finished product, but he'll be a good one. He'll be one who makes an impact early, I think. Like if you're looking for this year's Tyler Lockett, that would be the guy to look at. And then, with Collins, I think Collins is brought in to be competition for Christian Michael as the kind of number 2 back as far as just a pure running back behind Thomas Rawls. So if Collins shows enough in the preseason, there is, every indication he wins that job, and they could let Michael go. But it should be interesting to watch that competition going forward because, those 2 rookies, I think particularly, have a real chance of getting some real meaningful snaps this year.
Yeah, and as far as backup quarterback, obviously Jackson has been there, hasn't had to play meaningful snaps, but they did bring in undrafted Boykin And, is there any chance that Boykin ends up being the backup? He's the same size, a little bit sleeker than Wilson, but basically the same kind of player, not as accurate. But any chance Boykin makes this team as Wilson's backup?
Yeah, I think there's a good chance. Tavares Jackson isn't on the team right now. He's still an unrestricted free agent. And this is much like last year where they waited, he went through the whole offseason, and then they brought him back in the summer. And I think we could see that same thing. We asked John Schneider if they'd been in touch with his agent and his side, and they said yes, they've been having conversations. So that is a possibility. But I think they would really love it if Trevon Boykin developed into that, into a solid backup. I've been saying for a couple of years now I was puzzled why they weren't kind of developing a younger guy, whether he was a practice squad player or whatever, as a long-term backup, because it seems to be the plan nowadays. You have an established quarterback, you draft a guy in the later half of the draft, and then you kind of watch him develop and see if you have something there. Best case scenario is you never have to use him and you're able to trade him away for something. And that's, I think, what they'd like to see from Boykin. The other guy to keep an eye on, of course, is Vernon Adams, the former Eastern Washington and Oregon star, who is going to be trying out with the team during rookie minicamp. So we'll see if he has a chance to stick. And either one of those guys could potentially develop into their sort of developmental quarterback, even the number 2.
I think we can all agree that our offensive line needed a little improvement for last year. Do you think they did that through the draft with their offensive line draft picks?
Yeah, well, they certainly tried. Jermaine Ifedi, whatever you think about him as a player, they put the most resources in him as they put into any player since Bruce Irvin, as far as selecting him 31st overall. And he'll be given every shot, I think, to win a starting job. They say they see him as a tackle to start, although I've been seeing some rumors out there that they maybe see him starting at a guard, maybe being groomed into a tackle. So we'll see. When we talked to Pete Carroll, he was pretty sure that they were going to start him at right tackle, let him compete with Jamarcus Webb for that starting spot there. You guys, Reese Odiombo from Boise State, who I think is a pretty decent player, but has some major injury concerns, hasn't been able to stay healthy. If he develops like they think he could be a real nice fit at a left guard position, give some competition to Justin Britt there. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them, both of them play meaningful snaps this year, maybe even start. Who knows? There's also 3 linemen from last year who are going to be competing for spots. So that's going to be the position group to watch in the offseason.
That'd be so nice if that offensive line was not a major issue at the start of the season like it was last year. Golly.
They certainly have a lot of bodies. With so many draft picks the last couple of years, they did get a center too. I forgot about Joey Hunt too, so another center to throw in the mix. So a lot of young bodies to try to throw in there, and who knows if they're good players, but they're going to be given every opportunity to play.
Now I've got high hopes for this Alex Collins kid out of Arkansas. What players do you think have the best chance of making the squad?
Out of all the players in the roster, rookies?
No, out of the draft picks.
Oh, I think their first 5 definitely make the team. I don't really see any way that they don't, unless they're just dead wrong about them as players. But I think if Ifedi makes the team, I think Jaron Reed is probably if you're asking like early impact guy, Jaron Reed might start right away because he was considered one of the best defensive tackles in the draft period, and then probably the best run stuffer in the entire draft class. And I had some people get mad at me on Twitter asking why they wouldn't get a more well-rounded defensive tackle prospect who can rush the passer. But they've got guys who can rush the passer. They've got Michael Bennett who lines up inside and passing down and can rush the passer. They've got Jordan Hill who can rush the passer from the inside and really create a push there. What they really needed was somebody to replace Brandon Mebane, who was not a pass rusher, but was one of the best kind of on-point run defenders in the league. Take up space and really limit a back's ability to kind of see all the holes in front of him to see what's going on because he just clogs up the middle there. So if you get Jaron Reed to pair with Ataba Rubin in there, you might not see any drop-offs from what they had in their run defense last year when they led the league. So he's the one I think that makes an easy impact there. But I think also C.J. Prosise, Nick Vanette, the tight end, makes the team for sure. I think Odiambo makes the team. I'd be surprised if any one of those first 5 or 6 picks don't make the team.
Yeah, and again, we're talking to Stephen Cohen of Seattle PI. Just a couple more questions. The Seattle's linebacker group seems thin after losing Bruce Irvin.
Yeah.
They didn't address this in the draft. Will this be a concern going into the season?
Well, I think you're going to have to see some production from guys taken in the last couple drafts at that position. They did bring in some undrafted guys who were interesting, but I'd be lying if I told you I knew a ton about them. A guy like Cassius Marsh, kind of on the edge and potentially as a strong side guy who could hold the point of attack against the run. Frank Clark as a pass rusher in Bruce Irvin's role. They're going to rely on some of these younger, Kevin Pierre-Louis maybe, to take a bigger role. They're going to be relying on these younger players to pick up the slack where the linebackers are concerned, because you're right, they didn't really address it in the draft. And I don't think this was considered a real great draft for linebackers either. So maybe it's just a case where they thought the guys who they could get as undrafted free agents were just as good as the guys they could get in the 5th, 6th, 7th rounds. I think that's likely. So, they're going to be counting on guys from previous draft classes as well.
And Stephen, John Clayton said he thought the Seahawks had one of their best drafts in the last few years. Would you agree with what he said about that?
It's funny. I don't know how to quantify best because they've had a couple of drafts where you shake your head after it a little bit, and they turned out to be really great drafts. The 2012 one, comes to mind, obviously. This was certainly the most conventional draft that they've had, where it's like you had a set list of needs that you thought they had to address, whether that was offensive line, defensive line, running back, and they did. They just went in kind of 1, 2, 3 and addressed those needs. And they got players who most of us had seen connected to them, which was, sort of interesting. We're always waiting for the guy who's just off the draft board, nobody in the room has heard of. And that just didn't happen this time. It was guys who were mostly high-profile guys, mostly from high-profile schools, frankly. And so I think, in a way, it's sort of a different draft for them. I think it's a good one because when I look at, I think it's a good one because I've heard of the players. Now, if you had asked me in the 2012 draft if I thought that was a good one, I probably wouldn't have because I wouldn't have heard of Bruce Irvin. I wouldn't have heard of some of those guys that they ended up taking high there, Jeremy Lane. But that turned out to be a great draft. So whether or not this is a good one or whether or not this is just one that we recognize, I think it's still up for debate. I think my initial thought is it's a pretty good one.
Okay. Well, Steve, we appreciate you being on, and I really appreciate the breaking news, the unfortunate breaking news of the Seattle Arena vote. That's unfortunate, but I appreciate your update on that. Can you let everybody know where you can be found on social media?
Yeah, they can just follow me on Twitter. It's SCohenPI, SCOHENPI. And, I'm on there probably too much.
Good. It's good stuff, though. We appreciate
thanks,
you being
guys.
on.
I appreciate it.
Hopefully you come on again.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it anytime.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Well, that may be the most breaking news that we've ever had on. I mean, it's like it was almost like we intentionally had him on right after the city council meeting was over. I wish we could say that was
exactly
intentional.
Right. Yeah, because it was going on when we got on the show. I was like, man, I'm trying to follow this stuff, and then he walked right out of that meeting, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Crazy.
It's like, you know what, Kevin? I believe we have breaking news. Let's go straight to Stephen Cohen. It's like,
exactly.
I'm not that good. But yeah, it was funny. I'm live at City Council, City Courthouse. That was sad. That was actually horrible news. But we were lucky enough to be a part of that, I guess. I mean, it was 5-4. I really don't understand. I mean, the NHL, the NBA issue, it's almost like the fans of Seattle want basketball and hockey, but I mean, there's a lot of, the money involved in bringing those teams, especially where those teams are going to be. I know the NHL had a chance to either kind of be downtown or kind of be in Tukwila. And it was like it could never really get worked out, and then nobody even put in a bid for the NHL. It's just, I don't know.
Well, they've got $1 billion wrapped up in those two stadiums they have right now, with the CenturyLink and the baseball stadium. So yeah, it's but that's a lot of, it really is a lot of money to ask the taxpayers to finance. But I think, Hanson's got a bunch of money he wants to throw out there. So
yeah, it's frustrating because if there was a place, I know that there's places near Seattle, not downtown Seattle, that also want that. I don't know. It would be interesting. Hopefully it'll work out eventually. We're going to be joined by Danny Kelly in just a couple of minutes to talk more NFL draft. I'll save this for him, but he just had put something on field goals about Fetty, which I think people will find interesting. In fact, I believe Danny is on the line. We are now joined by Danny Kelly, editor of SB Nation's Seahawks site Field Goals. Danny has been on with us a few times before. He's always fantastic. Danny, I know it's a crazy busy time now just after the draft, so I'll get straight to it. But first off, just a little bit ago, you put up that Pete Carroll said that Fetty would definitely be the starting right tackle this year. Is that any surprise, or did you assume that would happen?
Well, that's not quite what he said. He actually said that Fetty's going to start inside at guard, and they're going to see how he does at right guard, which is a little bit different than what we thought. We thought, kind of just based on what coaches were saying when they first drafted him, that he'd start out being a tackle, and Tom Cable even said that he was going to be like a cornerstone tackle for the Seahawks. But Pete Carroll today on Sirius Radio was talking to Pat Kerwin and said that their plan right now is to see how he does at right guard first, and kind of see if they can make that work. And that would mean he would be a right guard, Jamarcus Webb would be a right tackle, and then so they'd have kind of a lot of beef over there on the right-hand side of the offensive line. So he's about 325, 30 pounds, and then Jamarcus Webb is also 330 or so. So that's kind of going to be really interesting to see. And it was a little bit of a surprise because we all kind of figured he would be the right tackle in this offense, but turns out he's going to start at guard, and they'll see where they go from there.
Gotcha. You hesitated for a minute. I thought you were going to say they announced that Vowell would be and I would be, oh my God, the offensive line's going to suck. So do you think the Seahawks did enough through the draft, besides Fetty, to address the glaring offensive line deficiencies? Obviously they should be better on the right-hand side, even if he's playing guard. But do you think they did enough?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think they did as much as they could, really. I suppose they could have gone, they could have drafted 3 offensive linemen to start out, but they got really good value with Jerron Reed. I don't think they expected him to be there that late in the second round. So, they took what they thought was the best tackle, best offensive lineman on the board at that point. And so you got to be happy with that, especially after they traded back to get an extra third-round pick. I think that's kind of, that tells you that it's obvious that that's a major goal for them, is to improve the offensive line. And I actually also like the center they drafted in the 6th round, Joey Hunt. He looks like he could be a guy that could actually start. He could compete to start early in his career. So that'll be really interesting to see. And then obviously Reese Adhiambo. It's going to be kind of hard to say that guy's name, I think, going forward. But Reese Adhiambo looks like a guy that could compete at left guard. That's where they're going to start him out. Justin Britt struggled last year, so I'm sure that he'll give him a run for his money. And then obviously Mark Galinsky is going to be trying to win the starting job at left guard as well, I think. So combined with what they've done in this draft, and combine that with kind of what they did last year, you got, Christian Sokoli, Terry Poole still out there potentially. Things look like they could be getting better at that position. It's kind of a slow process, but they've got some guys, and they've gotten guys in there that make it look like a lot better competition this year than it was last year. Last year was kind of dire. I think the situation on the offensive line was dire, especially just before the year. It just didn't look like there was any real good competition there. So in terms of competition this year, it looks a lot better.
Yeah, well said. Was there any player that surprised you that the Seahawks took, or was there one player that maybe they passed on that you were surprised by?
It was a little bit surprising they took CJ Precise, and that's not because I don't like him. It's just because I didn't really know if he was the kind of running back the Seahawks like. Just because he's a little more the identity of his game isn't power, and that's kind of how the Seahawks generally like to look for their running backs. And if you look at Alex Collins, that's kind of the idea. Like, he's a tough, physical inside runner, and so I like that Alex Collins took a lot. I think CJ Precise is the reason they took him is because they see him as a third down back, which makes all the sense in the world after I kind of like processed it. But originally I was like, okay, that's kind of an interesting pick. I wouldn't have expected that. But after they kind of explain, they see him as a third down back. I think they're going to use him in the passing game a lot. Kind of see him as like a Fred Jackson / Matt Forte type of running back, and that made more sense to me. So, but initially that was kind of the surprising one. And there was quite a few offensive linemen that they passed on that I was kind of surprised about. But at the end of the day, I do like the offensive linemen that they picked. And so, you can go through any draft and be like, well, this guy was on the board at this point, this guy was on the board at this point. You can second guess forever. But there weren't any like shocking moments. Overall, like for me, the draft was kind of just exciting and fun because I liked pretty much every one of their picks.
And Danny, sticking with that running back thing, 3 running backs seems like a lot to take in one draft. Does that mean the Seahawks might not be sold on Thomas Rawls coming back 100% healthy and his productivity, or they're not convinced that Christian Michael is going to be the answer for number 2?
I think personally, I think it's more the latter. I think it's more like we're not quite sure Christian Michael is a guy that we can really rely on. Obviously, he came in last year and did some good things for him, but I don't think all of a sudden he was a completely different guy. I think, he's still kind of the reason. There's still a reason that they dropped him in the first place, or traded him, I should say. And so I think that, bringing these guys in, gives them some insurance at that spot. And they always, their identity as a running team, and so, they're always looking for guys that can augment that part of their offense. And it sounds like from what John Schneider said is, there's just a lot of good running backs in this class, and I just really liked a lot of the guys. But it was definitely surprising Zach Brooks at the end of the draft there. Like, I think running back was probably the last position I expected them to take at that point, after drafting 2 earlier. But it sounds like they really like the guy. He ran like a 4.34 at his pro day, and he's used as kind of a receiver and a running back. And he's kind of, I think he might be kind of just like a practice squad developmental type of running back, but definitely all 3 of those guys will kind of, not that Christian Michael he needed a fire lit under his ass at this point. Obviously, he's kind of, the writing's been on the wall for a while, but it's going to provide a lot of competition. No one's really guaranteed their spot next year, and I don't think it says a lot about Thomas Rawls. I think he's still, they still have a lot of plans for him. I think he's still like number 1 in their plans. I just think, the draft is about insurance, not just this year, but 2 years down the line too. And I don't think that they are relying on Christian Michael as the guy that they can really have down the line. He's on a 1-year deal. That tells you a lot. He didn't get any offers from anyone else. I think that tells you a lot. So I think to me there's more building towards the future. And the same can be said about the tight end position. People were kind of freaking out. Oh, this is a tight end. Does that mean Jimmy Graham his career's over? Blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't think that really had anything to do with it. This is a draft. This is about building for the future, building for 2 or 3 years down the line. And so, I don't think any position you take really says anything about people on the roster. I just think it means, they just need to, they're continuing to build depth for the future, and that's just kind of how I look at it. I don't really try and decipher what it means for anybody on the roster at the moment.
I try not to get too in depth about it. Now, you mentioned Jarran Reed a little earlier, and I agree. I think he went a little later than I expected, and he's probably going to be expected to play some snaps right away. Do you think he's going to be a long-term answer to replace Brandon Mebane?
That's what it looks like, and based on pretty much the consensus, people thought he was going to be a first-round pick. Sounds like he fell out of the first round of the draft because he's more of a one-dimensional player in terms of he's a run stuffer. And that's kind of his role. And those kind of guys are not quite as valuable in terms of first-round pick. But just in terms of what he's going to do, like you're talking about probably the best run-stuffing defensive tackle in the draft this year. Just a guy that doesn't move when the run comes at him. He can take on double teams like it's nothing, and the line doesn't move when they try and focus it at him. Tough guy, emotional leader. Sounds like he's kind of like the alpha dog on a national championship Alabama team, so that's saying something. Just kind of a badass. That's kind of the thing, and that he brings to the defense. And I think he's right now. Obviously there's so much time that we have to kind of evaluate, but right now he looks like a kind of guy that can be a starter for the next 6, 7, 8 years, kind of like Brandon Meeban's been for the Seahawks. So that was a really cool pick, and I don't think you can underrate run defense enough in the Pete Carroll defense. I think it's just something that people don't talk about as much, but it is super, super important to Pete Carroll. Make other teams one-dimensional, so they have to throw the ball, and then you kind of let the Legion of Boom do their thing. But yeah, so I think for them it's a really valuable pick. Run defense is a valuable thing. It's kind of an identity thing for them, and so I think that was a really cool pick, and hopefully he'll be a star for the Seahawks.
Hey, at least he didn't fall in the draft because he was wearing a gas mask in a video.
God, yeah. That situation was crazy.
We went all show without making a reference to that so far. But just a couple more questions. First of all, which team now after the draft? I mean, we've seen teams improve this offseason in the NFC West. There's the Rams and the Cardinals, and I think the 49ers may also be in the division. But which team do you think, compared to the Seahawks, has the most talent on their roster currently?
I would say the Cardinals are definitely the main competition for the Seahawks at this point, and I think they got better in the draft. I liked a couple of their picks a lot. I liked the Kindiche pick. Obviously, it's kind of a risky move for them, but a lot of people compare him to like Darnell Dockett. He looks like a Darnell Dockett type. Kind of a disruptor in the middle, a guy that can get to your quarterback and stop the run. Fiery player. So that pick at 30 seemed like a good value, because especially when you're talking like some people were saying this guy was going to be like a top 5 pick earlier in the year. So that was a good pick, and I like the Evan Bowen pick for them. They got a center in the 4th round. And I think that was a good pick, and so combined with the fact they traded for Chandler Jones, I think they got better this offseason. I don't think they're markedly better. I don't think it's like a big deal. But they're not going in the wrong direction, I'll put it that way. Whereas, I just still don't really know what's going on with 49ers. They don't have a quarterback at this moment. There's always kind of a weird transition when you get a new coach in, and so that could be weird, and could take a while for, things to gel there. And then the Rams are always just the Rams. I'm not super sold on, their decision to trade up and get Jared Goff. It's just kind of one of those weird decisions that you wouldn't have expected in this year when it was kind of like there was no number one consensus quarterback. There was no, not a lot of hype around him before the draft season really kicked off. It didn't seem like the year that you'd see that, but lo and behold, we had a couple teams trade up. So we'll see what happens with Goff. I think that a lot of what they do this year hinges on him, because it sounds like he's going to start. But overall, I think the Rams are probably going in the wrong direction. They've lost a couple other key free agents. They're going to be starting a rookie quarterback, and it's just going to be, they'll play the Seahawks tough, I'm sure, but I don't see them threatening for the NFC West.
And then two areas of concern could be the depth at linebacker currently, and then a backup to Russell Wilson. Seahawks didn't draft any linebackers. They signed Trayvon Boykin, and looks like Vernon Adams is going to be coming in for a, quote, tryout. Maybe back up Russell. How much do you think these two areas are going to be a concern going into the next season?
Well, I imagine they'll probably re-sign Tavares Jackson, and he'll end up being the backup at the end of the day. I think right now it looks kind of like, well, what are we doing here? And Trayvon Boykin will be exciting. Potentially a guy who can, they could throw on the practice squad, or he'd be the third string guy if they decide to keep 3. But my hunch is that they'll re-sign Tavares Jackson. It'll be the same old at the quarterback position. So that really doesn't, worry me at this point. The linebacker situation, it was kind of interesting. They didn't really draft. They only drafted 2 defenders in the whole draft out of 10 picks. So that was really surprising. But they did get a couple of really interesting players in rookie free agency. I apologize for the train in the background if you guys can hear that. But I think, Christian French, that is really loud, isn't it? Sorry. Christian
Sounds
French
okay, actually.
Okay, good. The Oregon linebacker, I think I've heard he's kind of in the KJ Wright, frame, like big, long, tall guy who can move. Sounds like this David Perkins guy is a really interesting player, former Ohio State player that ended up transferring. But he's the guy to keep in mind when OTAs and stuff take off. There's another guy named Aaron Carlin who's really athletic, and he's potential as an edge rusher over there. And it sounded like they really like Monteith Overton too. So these are kind of some guys to keep in mind when OTAs and all the off-season stuff start going down. Some of these undrafted free agents could end up being kind of surprising and making the roster potentially.
That's awesome. Well, Danny, we appreciate you being on again, and hopefully we'll have you on again as we get closer to the season, as the season comes up. Can you let people know where you can be found on the web? Yeah.
Hit me up on Twitter. It's at FieldGulls, FieldGulls, and then obviously fieldgulls.com and SBNation.com.
All right. Thanks,
Awesome.
Danny, and enjoy your busy week. I'm sure it's going to be crazy with the many rookie draft and training camp. I can't even think of the word, but anyway, thanks for being on.
Yeah, the rookie mini camp. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. You said it better than I could.
All right.
I stumbled for the next 30 minutes. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Oh, we had a lot of great guests on, Kevin, and I got to end the last guest by saying I don't even think it was English what I was saying. I'm pretty sure it wasn't English. I was trying to say it in some kind of French. He said French, and anyway. So, but hopefully. Go ahead.
Hey, we're on for a long time, man. That's a lot of talking.
Yeah, that was a lot of listening and then me trying to form words. It's a good thing we weren't on the whole time. We really have to thank Danika Brace of Seattle Mist for being on, Stephen Cohen of Seattle PI, and of course Danny Kelly of Field Goals for being on. It was a really fun show for us. So I know that Kevin always has the last 2 words. I do want to say, again, we do a lot of stuff behind the scenes on the show, and I may have said this before on the air, but it's always nice to have Kevin as my co-host because he seems to intuitively know what we're supposed to be. I can say intuitively, but I can't say rookie minicamp. Anyway, what's next? And it makes the show so much more fun for me because I don't feel like such a slub. And he's like, "Oh, let's just go with it." So anyway, I appreciate you, Kevin.
I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, and we'll be back next month talking about something. And we got 2 months really. We're coming up on. Of course, we have rookie minicamp and some other things going on. But until we get to July, at this point, it's more like hopefully nobody gets hurt and everybody's okay when training camp.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But anyway, that's our show. Kevin will have the last 2 words, and then we'll just play the snippet of the Fetty pick. So, Kevin.
Go Hawks.
With the 31st pick in the 2016 NFL Draft, the Seattle Seahawks select Jermaine Ifedi, tackle, Texas A&M.
For a limited time, get up to $650 in credits per line to help you switch to AT&T when you trade in your current smartphones and buy new ones on AT&T Next. That's up to $650 in credits per line. A decision so easy, it practically makes itself. AT&T, mobilizing your world. Limited time offer. Switch offer requires eligible port-in for each line, trade-in, purchase, and service. Get minimum of $10 trade-in credit plus prepaid card and amount of device balance or early termination fee less trade-in. Monthly charges, usage, and other restrictions apply. See store for details.